Manslaughter, as most of you know, is the unlawful killing of another without malice. So we all know that murder, first-degree murder, is killing with intent. Manslaughter is wanton or reckless or grossly negligent taking of somebody's life. And as you can see, you can be convicted. If you are convicted, you can be sentenced to up to 20 years in jail. It's not often enforced in the social host context, but sometimes it is. And it was in this case. The picture you see there is Alexis Garcia, at the time 15 years old in that picture, and 15 years old when she died. Ms. Garcia, at the time, I think a sophomore in school, member of the volleyball team, very popular girl in school. She and a friend of hers decided to play hooky from school one day and drink some alcohol. Her friend provided the alcohol. It was a 20-ounce bottle of vodka. And shockingly, Ms. Garcia's friend had received that 20-ounce bottle of vodka as a birthday present from her father. I had pretty much the same reaction when I read this for the first time. That's where they got the alcohol. One afternoon they played hooky. They drank almost all of that 20-ounce bottle of vodka. They became incredibly inebriated, and Miss Garcia, in her drunken stupor, went upstairs and she filled the bathtub at her house halfway, took a bath, and she drowned in half a bathtub full of water. Of course, what happened, the police investigated, found out that she was inebriated, and they investigated and found out that, in fact, her friend had received the alcohol as a birthday present from her father. And so he was charged with manslaughter. I think we can all agree that it's pretty reckless and grossly negligent to give a 20-ounce bottle of vodka to a 15-year-old child. So he was charged with and pled guilty to one count of involuntary manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 5 years probation. He didn't do any jail time. And you might be asking why. Why didn't he do any jail time? It's a complicated legal explanation that has to do with causation. In other words, I think the prosecutors thought that they would have a difficult time proving that at the time he gave that alcohol to his daughter, that his daughter's friend would end up drinking it, going to a bathtub, and die as she did. I think if the circumstances were slightly different, if this guy's name was Timothy Parent, one of the most ironic last names you can imagine. Terrible parent that night, I think we can all agree. If it was his daughter, in fact, that died when he gave her the alcohol, the situation would have been a lot different, and he would have gone away to jail for a long time. So those are the laws. That's what the law is in Massachusetts. Social host laws are being enforced more and more each year. And going around the Commonwealth talking, we do this talk with district attorneys, with police officers. They tell us that the rates are rising, both the incidence of underage drinking and the arrests for underage drinking, and specifically arrests for violating the social host law. And we also go around the Commonwealth and talk with parents, like a lot of you here tonight, about this situation. We know it's a difficult situation, and I hope what I can talk to you about today offers some information that you find useful. What parents typically talk to me about is what we call the all too common scenario. There's a holiday party, there's a prom, there's something, and the parents are concerned that their children are going to go out and drink, and that there's nothing that they can do to stop it. They come up to me and they say, "Scott, kids in our community drink. There's nothing that we can do to stop it. We're not going to keep them home, locked up in their rooms, and if they go out, we cannot stop them from drinking." So what we've done is we've come up with a solution. We're going to provide safe places for them to drink. I hear this at every talk that I give. This probably happens in every community across Massachusetts all the time. And our point is, You know, rather than have my child go out and drink in the woods or at the beach or at somebody else's house where the parents aren't home, what I will do is I'll provide a safe place, my house, where the kids can come and drink. And it's going to be safe. I'll make sure they don't drink too much. I'll take their keys away. I'll lock the keys up in my safe or in my room, and I'll make sure the kids drink it off at our house in the basement. Next morning, they'll wake up. I'll make them scrambled eggs, make sure everybody's sober, give them their keys back, and they'll leave. Isn't that safe? The rationale is, of course, that it's better to have them drink in a controlled environment, and the assumption is that behavior and consequences are predictable. I will tell you that as logical as that sounds, it's not safe. Tragedy follows underage drinking all the time, no matter how safe an environment you try to create. And I'll tell you some stories that I think prove this to be correct. This is a picture of Megan Duggan, at the time 17 years old. This happened right around here in North Andover in 1997. Miss Duggan died at one of these kinds of parties. It was a party where the father of the house wanted kids to have a safe drinking environment. And so Miss Duggan and a lot of her friends went to this party. They consumed a lot of alcohol, and while drunk, Miss Duggan tried to go down to the basement, tripped on the stairs, fell to the bottom, and crushed her skull. Unfortunately, nobody saw this happen, and at some point, some of the other party goers came across her there at the bottom of the stairs, and they assumed she just drank too much and that she passed out. And at some point in the party, some of her friends even brought over a blanket, put the blanket over her, allowing her to sleep it off. In fact, the parents at the party observed her downstairs with the blanket over her. It wasn't for some 6 or 7 hours later that they realized there was really a problem. An ambulance was called, but of course it was too late, and she died from that skull crush. Just one example of how these kinds of parties can result in tragedies. This is the party host, Mr. Zarella, and these are his quotes. Very similar to everything that I hear when I go and do these talks. I just wanted them to have a safe place to drink. I thought it was safe. Of course, it wasn't. This is another example of it not being about drunk driving. It's not just about motor vehicle accidents. That's a picture, believe it or not, of a 16-year-old kid. I know he looks a lot younger than that. Named Michael Barron. He died at another one of these parties. He died from exsanguination, which is blood loss. He bled out when he died. Mr. Barry attended a party thrown by one of his 16-year-old friends at her parents' house. Her mother was home. Her mother watched as the 16-year-old kids came in the house one after another with backpacks full of beer and other alcohol, went down to the basement, and they drank it. And at some point that night, Mr. Barry became drunk. He became belligerent, and people at the party were disgusted with him and asked him to leave. They said, "You've got to leave." He wasn't driving. But he was quite upset with this, and on his way out of the party, he punched out a plate glass window next to the front door, and then he left. And Mr. Barry was not seen for 30 hours. Nobody knew what happened to him until he was found a couple doors down, dead on the front steps of the house. He had actually followed a trail of blood back to the house where the party had been, and it was obvious that he'd been going up people's walkways to try to get help, never got help, and he died. It's not just about taking away the keys. It's not just about motor vehicle accidents. What happened? Well, the police investigated. How could this happen? How was Mr. Barry so drunk? Where did he get the alcohol? Where did he drink it? And they found out that Nancy St. Jean had allowed him to drink alcohol at her house. And they charged her, and I think she pled guilty, and she was sentenced to 6 months in prison, and she did 6 months in prison. This is a tragedy, of course, for Mr. Barry's family. They lost their son. It's also a tragedy for the St. Jean family. Miss St. Jean left her family, her daughter at least, motherless. She went to prison. She did 6 months in jail. I believe she's the first person to actually do time as a result of the new social host law passed in 2000. I'll tell you one more story. This is a story not not in Massachusetts, but down in Virginia, where they have a similar law, although a much more strict penalty. And this is a story that doesn't involve a tragedy. There's no death, there's no loss of limb, nobody got hurt. But it's a story to show you that you can get in a lot of trouble just by throwing these parties. Even if you throw a party and everything goes exactly as you planned. That's a picture of Alyssa Kelly with her 2 sons, both of them under age of 21. Miss Kelly decided to throw a party, a birthday party for one of her sons, and invited over some 20 of his friends. She bought $300 or $400 worth of alcohol, and she provided it to them. The party went fine. The kids played a bunch of drinking games. Nobody was hurt, and they went to sleep. But the police found out about the party, and they investigated, and they found out that Miss Kelly had purchased all this alcohol, given it to all of these kids, and they pressed charges. And she was found guilty, along with her husband. And the prosecutor down in Virginia recommended that they be sentenced to jail for 90 days, which is not that unusual for these kinds of charges. Unfortunately for them, right before they were sentenced, there were a lot of drunk driving accidents and deaths in the community. And the judge, I think, looking to make an example of somebody, threw the book at them. And I mean really threw the book at them. Nobody was hurt, nobody was injured. He sentenced them to 8 years in jail. 8 years in jail. And so they appealed it. And the appeals court said, yes, 8 years is too much, but upheld the sentence, and they did, both mother and father, 27 months in jail, more than 2 years in jail each. The judge allowed them to serve it, one following the other, so that the mother could be home for the first 27 months, and the father the next 27 months. Those are the guilty and the inmates. And I'm going to play for you a real short clip of what the mother, Elisa Kelly, had to say about what happened to her.
It's a very tough, it's very hard sentence. It's very harsh, and not even a parking ticket or anything. I was trying to say that I did it, nothing happened. But then, I just think, I should be the poster child for everything that, it's amazing to me that there's so many parties still going on. You see it in the paper, you see it everywhere, but nothing's happening. But I get prosecuted, nothing's happening.
Okay, I don't know if you could all hear that. I'll summarize real briefly. She said, I've never been in trouble before, I've never even had a parking ticket. I wanted a safe place for them to drink. I was trying to save them, and I did. Nobody got hurt. And she said, what this really is they're making me the poster child for this crime. And she's right. That's what happened to her. Nobody was hurt. We can all think that that sentence was far too harsh for the crime. But that's what's happening. It's happening in Virginia. It happens everywhere. Police arrest people, and prosecutors prosecute people, sometimes to make examples of them. And we see it all the time. We see it with professional athletes. We saw it with Martha Stewart. All of them claim, I'm the scapegoat here, I'm the poster child. And they're